Welcome back, everybody, to another long format build guide. Today we're going over the Psyker build. Now, this is a weird build, and you'll just have to follow along. Psyker's fallen off since the year 1 update and the talent tree got introduced. People have kind of forgotten about him, but he's a really interesting and fun way to play the game. He's not the most meta build, but it's still a very strong build. If you want to have an easier time, go use a Surge Staff or something. But this is still a really strong build, so without further ado, let's go ahead and hop into the sauce. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe if you like the content. Means a lot. It helps the young channel grow. We're on our way towards monetization. We're at 1,000 watch hours. We need 2,000 more watch hours, and the channel will be monetized. It'll be a hallmark. We just hit 600 subs. Thank you, everybody. But anyways, the Blaze Force Sword is my melee weapon of choice. Now, you could also go with the Mark V Dueling Sword would be a great choice as well. I like the Blaze Force Sword. I just don't really like the Dueling Swords, but you can go use your favorite dueling sword as well if you'd like to. But we'll go ahead and get into the modifiers for our Blaze Force Sword. We want max damage, max mobility, max finesse, and max first target. And your warp resistance can be your dump stat, which is a funny thing to say. You know, why is our warp resistance the dump stat? Because we're going to be wanting to use those. Well, we actually want to be at high peril, and we're not using our force strike that much in this build. Then we'll get down to the perks. We have plus 10% melee weak spot damage. We are using our force attack a lot, but not a ton. And the warp resistance, really, you can just throw that out. Don't worry about it. Anyways, back to the perk. Melee weak spot damage is an essential perk for this build. I love the 10% melee weak spot damage because that's 10% melee weak spot damage to all enemies in the game. Anything that has a weak spot, you can do 10% more damage to it. I like that. And especially with this Blaze Force Sword, the heavy attacks and even the light attacks as well, really good all for just chopping through weak spots, especially on hordes. And then for my perk, I have 20% flak armor in enemies. I can't change it, it's locked in. But you could also run Maniac damage would be great in it, and Unyielding damage or Carapace armor damage. Actually, I wouldn't run the Unyielding, but I'd run the Carapace or the Flak or the Maniac as my perk. And I think all those would be good. And the reason I like that is because you can pick the enemy you're having trouble with, and not only do you get 10% weak spot damage to all enemies in the game, but you also get 10% on top of that 25% for the one type of enemy type that you're struggling with the most. So let's say you're struggling with Maniacs a lot, you have 25% damage to them, but then you also do another 10% damage to their weak spot hits, so you're getting a 35% hit bonus on weak spots against those types of enemies, which is extremely helpful at chewing through whoever you're happening to struggle with the most. Crushers, for instance, this build struggles with, so switching Flak to Carapace armor and having this melee weak spot damage could be really helpful for dealing with those really large targets. But I personally like the Flak armor. Then we'll get down into the blessings. We have Shred and Unstable Power. Now, you definitely want to get Shred 4 instead of Shred 3. I've got Shred 3. That is what it is. And then Unstable Power. And when we get into the talent tree, we're running that perk that builds up our peril really fast. So this will make sense, but we're using Shred just because crits are great. That increases our crit chance, and we're running talent tree that also increases our crit chance a lot, and we're rolling into that crit chance build. And we run Unstable Power because our perk blessings, or our talent tree, whatever you want to call it, builds up our peril by itself and causes us to have a lot of peril generation, and then you have that plus 20% power on your Blaze Force Staff, which is fantastic. Then, for my weapon of choice for the Psyker, we have the Columnus Mark V Infantry Autogun. You've probably been seeing this gun around all over the place. It's very good. Not the braced autogun version, the non-braced variant of it. That's the one that you want. And what you need on it is max damage, especially max ammo. Since we're not a veteran, you can run out of ammo easily. And then stopping power is very important because that actually affects your armor penetration, even though it doesn't look like it would, or it's very unsuspecting that it actually affects your armor penetration. Stopping power is essential. So those are your top 3. Then you want stability. This gun kicks a lot. You can get used to the recoil really easily, so stability isn't super necessary. You might want to, if stability or mobility is low, either one, it's not a big deal. Those two stats aren't as crucial. For my perk setup, we are running a high crit build, so I have 5% crit chance just to up it a little bit more and 10% crit hit damage. However, I'm just kind of locked in on that. I think flak armored enemy damage would actually be fantastic in this slot. I might change that later. I just haven't. So I definitely recommend flak. Maniac damage, we already do a ton of maniac damage, actually, so I really wouldn't recommend maniac damage. You could put unyielding damage on it. I just don't. It's more situational. Carapace armor is. You already basically do no damage to Carapace armor with this weapon, so I wouldn't recommend that either. So really, increase strike crit. Increase crit rate. Oh my god, words coming out of my mouth. Right. Increase crit rate or flak armor. I'd say was the best for this slot. Jeez, guys. Sorry. This is the best for this slot. I'm having other thoughts in my mind. I'm like, oh, maybe I should say that. Anyways, crit hit damage and maybe weak spot damage would actually be fantastic here. So yeah, I'd recommend crit hit rate, flak damage, or weak spot damage would all be fantastic perks to take in that slot. Then we get down to the blessings. Here we have Dum Dum and Raking Fire. I really like Dum Dum. You can also, there's a few blessings here you could take that increase damage. I particularly like Dum Dum because it hits on close range damage on repeated hits, stacks 5 times. So you can stack that 30% damage bonus up in 6 bullets. There's another one that gives you 10% damage, stacks 5 times. So that's up to a 50% bonus. However, it's on kill. So you have to get, and it only lasts 3.5 seconds. And the problem with that is this has a magazine. Your magazine runs out. It takes 2 seconds or maybe 3 seconds to reload your magazine, and then your ability can run out. So that's kind of a problem. The cooldown rate on that is a little too high for it to be really consistent. So I really like Dum Dum because you can get that damage bonus up really fast. It's not as big of a damage bonus, but it's absolutely plenty. And then we take Raking Fire. You know, you could take that other bonus here, but I personally, for this build, which is really strange, most people would not recommend Raking Fire, but this is a 40% damage boost when shooting enemies in the back. And you'd be surprised how much you're shooting enemies in the back, particularly when you see mutants coming for this build as well. You're whipping out the infantry autogun, and you'll dodge, the mutant will run by you, and you blast them in the back, destroyed, annihilated. So we get plus up to 30% damage on close range hits with Dum Dum, plus 40% here. So that's a plus 70% base just from the blessings damage. So that's a lot of damage to do to mutants. So this is going to be your overall money maker with this build. And you can do a lot of damage with this gun, especially because you want to focus on getting headshots when using this weapon. Headshots or back shots. We love those back shots. So make sure you get those back shots. Down to Curios. Moving on. You're a Psyker and you're going into melee combat a lot in close range combat. You're going to want some toughness because you are already a squishy boy. So I'm running a toughness and a health Curio, and then I'm running a stamina Curio. But this build in particular is easy to blow yourself up on, so you want to be careful on this build to not blow yourself up. So if you find you're dying a lot, you could switch the stamina or maybe the health or one of these for a wound, but we really need these bonuses from our Curios for this build to make sure that we're tanky enough. So I really recommend practicing and getting good with not blowing yourself up on this build. There is going to be another build for melee Psyker coming soon as well. And yeah, I mean, this one does melee and range gun Psyker very well. But I have another one that I made because in theory crafting this build, I had a lot of ideas. So we have one that goes down the left side of the talent tree and does warp charges, and we have one that goes down the right side of the talent tree, which is this one, because I think this build overall in my testing has performed better than the other one, although the other one's really fun as well, but goes a totally different route and uses the same weapons, but totally different theme going on there. Anyways, we have Curios, we have 15% toughness boost, we have 20% max health boost, and we have stamina. So they're alright. We want stamina regen and block efficiency. Block efficiency is what we absolutely want. Stamina regen's fine. Actually, we don't really care about stamina regen, but we definitely want block efficiency, max health, and max toughness boosts. Those are the three that I would go for, and damage resistance to gunners, obviously extremely useful as well. But we actually don't worry about gunners a whole lot. Obviously, there's still a problem in this build because they're one of the stronger enemy types in the game, but getting into the talent tree, maybe we'll shine some light on these subjects now. So, our first thing we take here is metal. We're hitting a lot of crits in this build. We're rolling into crits. So crit hits replenish 5% toughness and also grant 5% increased movement speed for 4 seconds. Stacks 3 times. So that's up to a 15% movement speed for 4 seconds buff, and since we're in melee combat, that's really useful for us as a Psyker, being able to be agile because we do suffer from lower mobility than, say, a Zealot would. We then have plus 3% warp damage on crit hits. That's fantastic. We're hitting a lot of crits. More damage. Fantastic. Then we take these two perks over here for a little bit more toughness. So we replenish 2.5% toughness for every 10% peril generated. That's nice. And we really want to get down to this battle meditation, 10% chance to quell 10% peril on kill. You could, instead of taking warp expenditure, you could come through this quietude as well, replenish 5% toughness for each 10% peril quelled. That would be good, but I just don't see us quelling that much when we need it. So I don't know. You could go this way, don't get me wrong, but I definitely recommend taking warp expenditure and battle meditation. Continuing down, we have toughness boost. Great, more toughness because our boy is squishy as can be. Then we get to our picks here. You could take Smite. If you really like Smite for some reason, you can take that. For the purposes of this build, I highly recommend Assail. You don't see Assail all around a lot anymore for some reason, but Assail here is very strong. And then you take Ethereal Shards. I've decided to take because I think I wasn't getting enough value without either of these. I was trying to not use either of these bonuses, and I just wasn't getting enough value from throwing Assails without the Ethereal Shards. So I've decided to cut some points off from somewhere else and take Ethereal Shards. And I'm going to go ahead and show you guys that alternate route that you can take instead of using Ethereal Shards, instead of taking Warp Expenditure and Battle Meditation once I get down to the bottom of this talent tree. Then we have Toughness Damage Reduction. Fantastic. We want all of these perks here. So we take Malefic Momentum, so 4% damage to warp attacks for 8 seconds on non-warp based kill. This is fantastic because we're using the Gun Psyker and we have a Force Sword. So when you're using the Force Sword, you can just be chopping through your enemies, and let's say, how many is it? Stacks 5 times. So you get 5 kills just chopping through your enemies, then you charge up a Force Sword attack and go for a heavy or a light or whatever, and you're getting a 20% damage bonus. Yeah, 4 times 5. You're getting a 20% damage bonus right off the bat from that attack. But in addition, you can charge that up with your weapon as well. So you whip out your Columnus Mark V assault rifle, and you burn through some enemies. Then you whip out your sword, force charge attack, bam, got him. And in addition to that, that plays into our Assail as well. And you see how this is all playing into being a Psyker. It's really like you're playing a Veteran and a Zealot, but instead of either of those, you're a Psyker. And it's all combined into one. So it's really a weird mishmash of abilities, but it's really fun how they all play together and synergize and just make the game overall different to play. Because, you know, once you get into your builds and stuff and you're still playing the same way, it can get boring. It can get stale. You want to change things up, have an interesting build. So this is one of the most interesting builds I've made for myself in a while. But so we take Ethereal Shards, projectiles from Assail now pierce additional targets. Fantastic. Toughness, damage reduction, that's great. The damage we do from either our weapon or from our sword or our gun charges this up, and then we go into Assail. We throw all of our Assails, and those Assails are getting 20% damage boosts. So our base power from Assail is 100 damage, so they're doing 120 base damage instead now, which is nice. That's nice to have. That's definitely going to help get us a few more kills when we chunk all those out. And we'll get down here, farther down, we have further boosts to our Assail. And then your movement speed is not reduced while quelling. You could get rid of this one, but I find it to be very useful, so I'm not going to get rid of it. I like to keep it, but there are other perks in this tree that are very useful as well. But we are in melee combat, and we do need to quell sometimes while in melee combat, so having this is useful, especially since we have a lot of these movement bonuses. This allows us to use those movement bonuses while we're quelling. Then we have 5% toughness damage reduction, and then you and your allies gain 5% crit hit chance. That's nice. I could see a alternate path where you come through 10% toughness replenishment for allies, and then go through Seer's Presence for 10% ability cooldown. If you lean more into the what are these called? Assails. If you lean more into the Assails, you can certainly come through this Seer's Presence and use that. But in my experience, I like this increased crit chance because I'm really going for that crit chance in this build. Then we have Empathic Evasion, and this is why we want that crit chance, and Anticipation. So Empathic Evasion, a crit hit makes you count as dodging against ranged attacks for 1 second. this gives you a lot of sustain when you're out there in the middle of the open as a Psyker, very squishy, very vulnerable. When you're in melee combat, you might have gunners surprise you, shotgunners surprise you, and this saves you. This has saved me many times from going down. Is having all this crit chance stacked up, and then having empathic evasion. Especially when you're using your assault rifle, you're shooting out a lot of small damage bullets, hitting one bullet. So you have a large magazine, a lot of bullets, and a lot of crit chance. So you're maybe not doing as much crit damage per crit hit, but you are getting these crit hit bonuses that are stacked up in our talent tree, which are very important, especially like 3% warp damage on crit hits and dodging if you hit a crit, counting as dodging if you hit a crit for a few seconds. So then we take some more toughness damage reduction. Fantastic. Oh, wait, actually, we're down here. Yeah, we're down here. So we take empathic evasion, count as dodging. Range damage. Great. More damage for our infantry autogun. And then we get to the meat and potatoes of the build, our keystone ability. I'm taking Sire's Gaze for this build. So Sire's Gaze, when you enter Sire's Gaze, you gain 10% damage bonus, fantastic, and plus 20% crit chance. That's a lot of crit chance and a decent damage bonus. So we're doing a lot more damage while in this mode. And for every second you spend in Sire's Gaze, you gain 1% damage up to a maximum of plus 30%. So we're doing plus 30% damage potentially up to probably averaging around plus 10 to 15% damage while you're in Sire's Gaze. And then we're getting plus 20% crit chance and plus 10% damage. So we're averaging probably plus 20-25% damage while in Sire's Gaze because we have our damage stacks from being in Sire's Gaze as well as the base damage stat bonus. And then this effect also lingers for 10 seconds after leaving Sire's Gaze, which is good. It lets you keep using this while you're in the middle of a horde for a little bit to help clear it out. And then while you're in Sire's Gaze, though, you're building up to 100% peril constantly, so you have to quell a lot while in Sire's Gaze, especially if you're entering Sire's Gaze and using your assails. It's extremely easy to blow yourself up using assails and Sire's Gaze together. Say if you're using Sire's Gaze and then Smite, you would never blow yourself up because when you end Smite and you overcharge, it actually you won't actually blow yourself up. Smite just ends if you hit 100%. But Smite doesn't do that much damage. I don't see the point of running those two together. It would be much better to run Smite with Empowered Psionics than with Sire's Gaze. It would be much better to run it with something over here. Anyways, yeah. So that's why we're running Assail, especially for this build. And then, let's see. Where do we go with that next? We can go to our next keystone. We take Warp Speed. It's a funny name for it. We get 20% movement speed while in Sire's Gaze. That's a fantastic base bonus. And since we're melee gun Psyker and we're in there fighting close range, good to have. Then we have precognition. Blah. Weak spot kills count as 1 second spent in Sire's Gaze. And with our infantry autogun, we're focusing on a lot of weak spot kills. And with our sword, we're also focusing a lot of weak spot kills. So this allows us to get that damage bonus up, and it also adds a higher finesse bonus a lot faster, which those finesse bonuses is your crit hit multiplier. So you're getting even more crit hit damage. You're getting more damage. It's overall fantastic bonus. Then you get Then we take Sire's Gaze, which we now take plus 20% toughness damage reduction while Sire's Gaze is active. Another fantastic bonus while Sire's Gaze is active because we're in melee combat and we're a very squishy enemy, or a very squishy player. So having all these toughness damage bonuses, reduction bonuses, is fantastic. So then we come to our next part. We have crit chance. Fantastic. We need more of that. We have kinetic deflection. While below critical peril, blocking attacks causes you to gain peril instead of losing stamina. This is fantastic. What's this say at the bottom? Gain peril is 25% of the blocked attack stamina cost. Okay, I see. Anyways, that doesn't really matter. This is extremely useful for being very tanky in melee combat and being able to block for a very long time. So it's very useful. Highly recommend that. We'll come check over here. We have 10% health. Great, a little bit more health. And then up to 20% damage from all sources based on your current peril level. Now what this does is it stacks with our unstable power. So we have plus 20% power here on unstable power, and we have plus 20% damage from all sources. And paired with our Sire's Gaze, that basically automatically puts us up to max peril for us over time. And so then we're getting that plus 20% damage, plus 20% power to our sword or our gun. So, oh, actually, just our sword, because that's a blessing on our sword. But this also gives us plus 20% damage to our gun. Additionally, I forgot to go over this, Sire's Gaze does not end unless you hit 100% peril. So as long as you're quelling, so we have our force sword out and you're going to town with your force sword, hitting weak spots, having a great time, as long as you're quelling, you're not going to hit that maximum peril. Now, of course, the peril generation speed ramps up over time, and for that reason, I could see you take precognition and go for this reality anchor instead. And that might let you stay in Sire's Gaze a little bit longer and just get these base bonuses for a little bit while longer. And that would be nice to have too. But precognition is strong as well. I'm not sure if it says weak spot kills count as 1 second spent in Sire's Gaze. What I'd like to know, and I haven't tested this myself, does that 1 second add up to faster peril generation as well? Or is the peril generation increase rate independent from how long you've been in Sire's Gaze? That I do not know. If that is the case, it could make even more sense to take Reality Anchor, because you're just going to be able to stay and get these base bonuses from Sire's Gaze even longer. But that's up to you. You can play around with both of those. They're easy to swap out and see which one you like the most for you. It really fits your playstyle. All right, then we'll finish out this talent tree. Kinetic Deflection, great for melee combat, keeps you from running out of stamina. Additionally, running this probably allows you to use a different Curio instead of the stamina Curio. You could run that wound Curio or another toughness or health Curio, but I like having the stamina because we get a lot of sprint duration, a lot more sprint duration, and if we're at max peril, we can block for a lot longer, because if we remember, we are getting up to high peril a lot with the Sire's Gaze, so having more stamina is helpful because our peril will not always be able to absorb that melee damage for us. Then we have 5% movement speed bonus, fantastic, move around a little bit faster. True Aim, landing 5 weak spot hits grants your next ranged attack a guaranteed crit. That is really cool. It's not super great. Now, this does say landing 5 weak spot hits grants your next ranged attack a guaranteed crit. So, I suppose... Actually, I take it back. That is better, because it's not just melee attacks. You don't have to hit that with melees and then switch to your ranged attack. This can be with your ranged attack as well. So if you're using the infantry autogun and you're hitting headshots, then your next one's a guaranteed crit, which is going to automatically trigger empathic evasion, and it's going to stack up this perfect timing and metal. So all that plays together to make you a lot more tanky when you're out in the open in combat and you're doing a lot of crit hits. Fantastic. We take more toughness damage. Great. Then we take this keystone down here. I guess this is the ability and this is the keystone. Whatever. Doesn't really matter. Every second, enemies within 25 meters have a chance of being marked. And you hardly ever see anybody run this keystone because it's weird. And it makes you play a very different way than you would normally just as a Psyker. And so every second, enemies within 25 meters have a chance of being marked. Killing an enemy replenishes 10% toughness, so we're getting more toughness for killing these marked enemies. Grants a 20% movement speed bonus for 2.5 seconds, and adds 1 precision bonus for 15 seconds. I would really like to see this 20% movement speed for 2.5 seconds buffed to 3.5 or 4 seconds, because it's not that long. Now, if you are playing the very ideal way, you're really committed to this keystone, this movement bonus is fantastic for getting you to the next enemies, but I would like to see it buffed. Maybe just 1 more second would be really nice to have. It is a keystone after all. It should be really powerful. So yeah, so we get, and we're generating more toughness from this as well, so that's fantastic. And then we get down to the precision bonus. What is precision? So each precision grants 1% damage, 2% crit hit damage, and 2.5% weak spot damage. And it stacks up to 15 times. So we can get up to a base 15% damage increase, base 30% crit hit damage, and base 2.5%. What that would be? Like 35-ish? No, 4. I don't know. So 30 to 40 crit hit, weak spot damage. That's great. Percentage increase. Then for down here at the bottom, I've taken Purloin Providence. Interesting. I don't know. Killing enemies marked by disrupt density. Or that's destiny. Oh my goodness, destiny. Killing enemies marked by disrupt destiny have 20% chance to instantly quell 15% of your peril. That's good. I've noticed this one's maybe not as useful as the others. I might take this one off. I haven't noticed this one helping me out in battle, but you know, it automatically quells that peril for you, so it's kind of hard to notice when it does do that, but maybe taking negative peril generation or another toughness would be more beneficial than just having that 15% quell. It's okay. I think this is probably better spent somewhere else. And you have your pick. I mean, it's good here, but there's other places again. I'll get to the rest of the talent tree here in just a second. We have Lingering Influence, increases the duration of Disrupt Destiny from 15 seconds to 30 seconds. I like this one a lot more than this one because I was using this 15, increases the mass stacks from 15 to 30. So that's a lot of stacks. So instead of just having that 30%, we get, what do we get? We can get up to plus 30% damage, plus 2.5% crit hit, or plus 60% crit damage. That's a ton. And plus 2.5% weak spot damage. That is a lot. Or that would be plus 60.5 to 75% weak spot damage-ish, I think. Is that my math might be wrong there. Anyway, so that's a ton of weak spot damage, crit hit damage, and the other one. But when using this, I find that you don't have those targeted enemies up often enough, and you'll lose all your stacks when your what is this called, Disrupt Destiny. When your Disrupt Destiny stacks run out, they're all gone. It doesn't go 15 down to 14 down to 13 down to 12. They all disappear like old school Psyker with his warp charges. They're just all gone. That sucks. And I would like to see that chart changed as well. Maybe you don't keep all the stacks, just like 15 down to 14 down to 13. But seeing it like if one charges down, you lose 2 or 3 at a time per missing charge, that would be nice. Because keep getting these 30 stacks up and keeping them up, very difficult. I just don't have... A lot of the time, I'm only at 2 to 3 stacks because my stacks are running out before I get to another enemy. So I think doubling the time that you have these stacks up is a lot more beneficial to actually keeping this chain up, because that's great that we can get to 30 stacks, but I'm finding that we rarely get to 30 stacks. You can definitely tell when you're at the 30 stacks, but you missed a lot too. And then finally we have Cruel Fortune. Weak spot kills grant 2 additional stacks of Disrupt Destiny. That's great. So now we can use our weak spot build, our weak spot crit hit damage build that we've got going on here, and especially with the sales help there as well, because those are weak spot hitting, to stack up your Disrupt Destiny faster. Now, there is an alternate route down here at the bottom that you can take that I would also recommend. Let's say you could drop... well, we want to keep that, but we could drop this guy. We could come up here and drop these 2. That frees up 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. So I'd recommend coming over here. I hate it when it does glitched right now. Okay. Well, you guys will just have to sit through this. So we take our 3 charges over here. We get -5 peril generation. That's kind of useful for keeping us in our Cyrus Gaze a little bit. And then we have 50% coherency aura. That's okay. Toughness damage reduction. That's okay. What we're really wanting is this increased quell speed by 30%. That is extremely powerful for helping keep you in Cyrus Gaze for, let's say, 1 more cycle. So you'll go into Cyrus Gaze, you'll hit things, you'll get up near 100% peril, you'll quell down, you'll hit things, you'll get up near 100% peril, you'll try to quell down, it'll take a long time, and then you'll hit a few more things and you'll be out of Cyrus Gaze probably. This 30% quell allows you to basically get 1 more of those hitting things than quelling cycles in before you overcharge. But as you can see, we have to clear up 4 talent tree points to get over all the way down to Solidarity. And I personally just find that it's kind of a pain in the butt to get to. And I'm not in love with these other 3 points. So is it really worth 4 talent tree points to get to? I don't know. We can just take some more toughness generation and stuff up here. So, yeah, that's what we do with that. Now, I'll go ahead and run us all the way over to the Psykhanium, because instead I decided it would be cool to start us in the barber shop today. So, we'll take a little trot over to the Psykhanium. We're almost there. And we will go and take a look at what this does. I'll be honest, I've not taken this build into the Psykhanium before. So, it'll be a little bit of a learning experience for the both of us while we're in here, because I've just been running these builds in Damnation, and this build has cleared a few Maelstrom missions as well, and it's been really fun in the process. So like I said, this build is just really fun. So, let's go and see how we're doing damage-wise. So, we do okay flak armor damage. We hit a crit there. 2 hits on him. See, we don't, the damage is fine. The damage is fine. It's not bad. Now, you'll go for heavy attacks on these words a lot. Or I think the optimal way to do DPS on this sword is to spam these lights. Just over again the exact same light. And this builds up our peril, so we're getting a lot of damage bonus from our talent tree for that. So once you get high, you'll just stay on the peril. You can see we do a lot of damage to these, what are these guys called? Scab Ragers. Oh, I had no idea that was that. So these Ragers, we do a lot of damage to them. Dogs are no problem, of course. Enemies are not much of an issue. We do quite a lot of damage to Maniacs as well. We got an arm hit there. We can cleave through a lot with this ability as well. This weapon is the exact same thing as the power sword. If you took unyielding damage, you cut through these guys a little bit better. See, I'm curious how I do against these guys, because you'll find that you do kill these guys a lot while you're in game. And of course, if you hit a crit on those, you had your crit chance up. So now we see we're at maximum peril. So the way I'd actually be playing this in game is you're coming in and you're force chopping as much as possible. And you see we're at max peril. All you have to come down is a little bit. Oh, not blow yourself up though. So easy to accidentally blow yourself up, and you have no way to save yourself on this build if you do blow yourself up. So let's get ourselves back up again. So all you have to do is quell a little bit. If you hit 100%, you just quell a little bit. Honestly, not really. No need to do that though, because when you get up to this max peril, now you have a ton of damage bonus from both of our blessings. So you can just come and chew through all these guys really easily, because we've got all that damage from our peril. You'll see, you can start to call peril on your own anyways. So you can come in, you can just chop down on these guys. And then when that's up, you can hit your Sire's Gaze as well to go into melee combat. And this is kind of underwhelming because these hordes are so spread out. But in game, of course, you're getting totally overran, so it's a lot more interesting and useful to have. And then we have our weapon of choice, the infantry autogun. Not only does this thing chew through flak armored enemies, it chews through hordes very well. So we're hitting a decent amount of crits. We have like a 50% crit hit rate on that shot, it seems like. See, from weak spot hits, you absolutely shoot through enemies. So if you're focusing on who you're shooting at and not just blazing away and going like this, you can easily spend an entire mag shooting, 7 guys. But what you actually should be doing is just playing a little bit more like a veteran would. Going through these weak spot hits, you're hitting a ton of crits. And you see we got through like half of, 3/4 of a magazine there, and we've basically killed 12 of these guys. Now you can also hip fire up close. The hip fire on this is not bad whatsoever, so you got guys running at you, just hip fire them in the face. Now we actually don't really worry about Ragers, Dreg Ragers. Oh, so this is Scab Rager and Dreg Rager. 600 hours in this game, you think I'd know that. We don't actually struggle against these guys a lot because we'll find that our shots hitting him kind of stagger him and slow him down a little bit. He's not getting fully staggered, but he's getting slowed down a lot. And as you can see, he staggers like that. And we just burned through him like that, no problem. Let's see. So we did mention earlier how getting these kills. So So we don't do great against him without our charged attack and just melee. But again, that's what this gun is for. So we do, let's see, do 261 to the chest, 449 to the back. And that's after stacking up our dum-dum as well. So kind of hard to consistently test that. But you can see, if you're dodging around, shooting these guys in the back, shooting them in the head, you're going to absolutely chew through things, while as the Psyker, in fact. Now we don't do much damage to the carapace armored enemies. I don't know why you'd be going at them with an autogun anyways. If you know how any autogun in this game works, you wouldn't do that. So now let's see how this sired gaze. Now it's not activating our F, or like every 25 meters within. Enemies within 25 meters have a chance of being marked. It's not doing that for us, which is very nice of it. So you're not even seeing the damage bonus that you can get from that, which is like 15% bonus damage and crit hit, weak spot damage and stuff like that. So we're not even seeing that in the Psykhanium right now. So I'll go ahead and activate Sire's Gaze. It's pretty good. Personally, what I do is you might come in, you see you have a large horde coming up, you'll come to Sire's Gaze, you'll throw these things around, and when you run out of those, you'll quell, and then you'll go into melee combat, and Sire's Gaze will be nice enough to put you at very high peril just for you, and then you can go to town on all these guys without blowing yourself up. You can see 5% more damage to flak armor enemies, which is really nice. So flak armor damage I would really recommend. But again, we're not even getting any of our precision bonuses right now, so that's going to help you out a lot too. So, thank you guys for watching. We managed to keep this video under 40 minutes. Lucky day for you, I guess. You don't have to sit through the entire painful thing. So, thank you everybody for watching. Remember to comment, like, subscribe if you like the video. I'm going to go ahead and leave other videos around. I forgot to mention that earlier, I think, so oh well. Hopefully you saw the cards pop up. But there will be gameplay examples and live stream examples of this build being used. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.